All right, and welcome to the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast, back for another week. We've had some great guests lately. I'm not saying that the ones we had before weren't great. A couple of them were bad. But we had some, just our friends that we talked about.
That was weak.
We'll be posting those in the comments. No, we took a little break. You went on vacation. Came back all happy.
I did.
Tell me what a vacation's like. That should be fun.
I tell you, it's time for another one, though.
Is it? It is. You came back and hit work.
Yes.
You had a bunch of everything waiting for you when you got back.
I did, and it's exhausting.
I called you today, and you were on the roof.
Yes.
Which you're not normally on the roof.
I'm not on Thursday and doing all that, but it's been crazy busy.
Did you get rained on?
No.
Really?
So you got rained on coming in to the studio today.
Yeah.
I did not get rained on at any point. Every time I got out of the truck, it had just stopped raining. When I got in the truck, it started raining.
He walked into the studio, and as soon as the door closed, and I was coming behind him, just the bottom fell out. And that's happened to me twice today.
Listen, I'm just saying that hedge of protection. Working right.
No, I'm not praying right. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
No, we've got so much exciting stuff. We've been going like crazy over and starting into the summer. Now we're in what's known in Florida early summer. Because we have, 7 seasons or 8 seasons, something like that.
Yeah, you got summer.
You got early summer.
Summer.
You got summer. You got late summer. Mm-hmm. Right? And then there's a mid-spring. there's an almost fall and a near fall.
2 cool days, and then there's right back to summer.
Yeah, 2 weeks where it's winter and it snows for 9 inches. So that's welcome to Florida.
That's it.
No, but we've had a busy already. We've got a lot of great people lined up over the next few weeks. Talk to Robert Preston out of, I think he's in Alabama now, owner of Unhitched RV around the country, one of the larger, fastest growing RV park management companies in the country.
It's incredible stuff.
Excited to have him on. He's going to be coming in to us virtually, so that'll be a little bit different setup for us, but we're really excited to hear from him. We've got a lot more people. Actually, he reached out to me after 2 weeks and said, I'd really like to be on your podcast. Does this work? So he's hearing what we're doing here in Pensacola, especially there's some entrepreneur groups around. I know we've had several guests from the Olive Entrepreneur Club, several from the Marcus Point, all here in Pensacola. There's a growing community of Christian entrepreneurs, and we're very excited. People are seeing that they're doing things for Christian entrepreneurs, but people that are trying to get traction and the word out there to attract more people, more Christians to get into business. And there's a lot of people out there with similar hearts, and they get happy when they meet somebody else with that same kind of heart. So we're excited to see what's going to happen. And the biggest way that you can help us make sure that we have the impact that we believe that God's given us really this to do. And to help us do that, we really need your help to subscribe and share our podcast, our episodes on whatever platform you're listening to it. Share it, repost, reach out, comment. Let us know what you would like to see and hear and who you'd like to hear from. All that kind of interaction helps us just continue growing. We've had some great sponsors that are going to be coming on with us and take us to that next level. Hopefully take a couple things off our plate. Yeah. So we can concentrate on the things that really matter and pushing us forward. So we're just super excited about it. And today we do have a guest with us that I've been trying to get forever, and I can't get to his secretary. I've talked to, today we have with Scott Porter. Full disclosure, is my broker, and one of them. For sure, you and your brother Mark, the Porters, Jim Porter, his dad started Old South Properties back in 1974. 1974 here in Pensacola, and is one of the most well-known and probably has one of the most stellar reputations in Pensacola. And they do business the right way, 100%. And I know when I was I'll tell the story a little bit more, but really this family has been so impactful in my life. When my businesses closed last year, I was just kind of in a numb state. Like I didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do now. And I'm standing in line outside a church it was a Christmas, what do we call that at Marcus Point? Spirit of Christmas. Yeah. Spirit of Christmas, and I was up in Molino at the Molino campus, standing in front of a food truck, waiting for a sandwich. That the church was buying us.
Miserable
night. There's a cold. The rain and snow was hitting your face.
No, Timmy was waiting for a gift,
and he limped over to me, and I was standing in line, and I was really just still in that kind of numb. And Jim Porter came up to me and asked me how I was doing and struck up a conversation with me. And he asked me what was wrong, because apparently I don't wear my face well, whatever. And I just said, well, businesses I had to close them this year. So I just couldn't keep up with the costs. And I said, be honest with you, I'm not sure what to do. And he said, I know what you should do. he said, you need to do real estate. Just go do it. I'll tell you what, go talk to Scott and go talk to Mark. He said, they at least give you some good advice. And I said, okay. He said, come out to the barn meeting this Thursday. So there was a barn meeting coming up that next Thursday. And I had never met Scott and Mark prior to this. I'd always heard of them. Of course, my family has known them since they moved here, probably 11 years ago. And went to that barn meeting, and I met you and got connected with Scott with Mark. And Mark said, hey, why don't we just meet on a certain day? And I said, well, great. We'll sit down, we'll have a conversation, and we'll see if this is something. And I met with Mark, walked into the little conference room, and he goes, here's your agent packet. Here's what you need to do. And when you're an agent with us, this is what's going to happen. I went, okay. Well, I said, let's move in a direction. I said, I can always change, right? And I went home, prayed with my wife, and God just kind of said, this is it. This is what I was putting you, raising you for. What I put you through, all this kind of stuff. And that spark came back, and that purpose came back, and like in overdrive. And I've never been more, I think, passionate about a future that God's given me, just by people just being willing to sit down and talk, and being willing to say, hey, I think this may work for you. I could see you do this, and give you a little bit of an encouragement to do it. And I just jumped in with every foot I had, and haven't said no to anything, because I just want to learn everything I possibly can. I might at some point, just to let you know, have to say no to something. But at some point, we haven't hit that yet. But I can't tell you what Scott and your family have meant to me, especially my family, 100%. So it is a great pleasure to have you here today, and we want to hear from you. Kind of introduce yourself a little bit. For those of you who may not know the Porter story and your story. Okay. We really want to hear your story, not just your dad's story, but sometimes that can get maybe a little lost if you're in the family business. But how does God moved in your life and has brought you to here? And tell us a little bit about you and Old South.
Yeah, sure. So my dad was in the military, and I was born in Puerto Rico. Nice. Rosie Roads at the Navy base. Didn't know that. And by the way, if you ever try to get a birth certificate when all you have is a hospital record, signed by the commander of the base, it's a little difficult.
Wow.
So we went through those challenges, but no. So when I was less than one, my family moved here. My mom and dad did, and it's been home. Pensacola's been home to us ever since. So went to Pensacola Christian Academy over there for K4 till graduated as a senior. And then from there, went to Tennessee Temple in Chattanooga. Oh, yeah. And you're familiar.
Oddly enough, Scott and I went to Tennessee Temple at the same time. I was in their kindergarten during those years. He was in the college, but we did go to Temple at the same time.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, your dad graduated from there, didn't he?
He did. He was the music director at Highland Park there while you were there, too.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Man, I'm old.
That's a nice way of putting it without saying it straight
Without
out.
saying it.
Yeah.
He is my boss.
Yeah.
So, when I graduated from Tennessee Temple, I had a business degree, and that's where I met my wife as well. And when I got out, I had just always grown up with the real estate business because, when I was real young, that's when my dad started it. And so, I grew up emptying the trash when I was old enough to empty the trash, cleaning the toilets, everything that needed to be done around there. It was just a family thing that we just did. Sure. Then when I could cut the grass, I would start cutting the grass. Then when I got my driver's license, I started putting all the signs up for the agents. Nice. Stuff. We'd do this. I was the sign guy. And then when I graduated from high school in '86, that's when I got my real estate license. Wow. And then so I had it, came back 2 years during college and worked like in relocation. At that time, there was a big relocation network with all of the franchise companies that we're associated with. And so we would work with them, trying to find them housing. And if they were going to be moving out, dealt with a lot of military, we would help them find housing in other areas as well. So in '91, when I graduated from college, that's when I went full time with Old South Properties, and I went straight into property management at that time.
Oh,
and so it's been a long journey. I've had one career, when I graduated from college. I had a lot of little jobs, before then,
sure.
But have been in full time real estate ever since 1991.
I mean, 34 years?
Oh my goodness, yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so 34 years, you see a
Is that
lot.
the first time you've done that math in a little
Yeah.
while?
Yeah, just-
Oh, no.
It just happens.
Wow, that got high.
And, when you say 1991, we feel like it was 20 years ago, but that was 34 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, anyway. In 34 years, you've seen
You
a
see
lot
all
of
this
ups and
gray hair?
downs. That's right. Yeah.
By the way, you won't see that gray hair on our website because that is the magic of marketing. So we
Yeah.
Can we do that on the podcast?
yeah, we'll make sure your hair's the right color.
That's right. All right. It's really dark black.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever. 34 years, you've seen a lot of up and downs in the
Yes.
real estate market. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we sure have. I can remember my dad used to tell me the stories about selling houses for people, and the interest rates would be 17%, 16%, 17%. So we've seen the cycle. Then we went through the ups and downs. We went through the recession in the 2008, 2009 timeframe. That was a very difficult time in the market. A lot of people were overextended and just saw really good people who had worked hard their whole life, career military people that were having a very difficult time. They had, I don't know if you remember at that time, they had a lot of interest only, no doc loans.
Yeah.
And then when they went to refinance, they couldn't refinance because the values weren't there for
Sure.
them to be able to refinance. So it was a very difficult time. A lot of people lost a lot of property. And actually we were talking about this the other day. In 2012, we actually got back to 2002 prices. So if you went back in the MLS
Wow.
and you did some of the numbers and looked at it, it took all the way to 2012 to get back to where we were in 2002.
Wow.
So, I mean, you could see the market really just, it like fell off the cliff.
Sure.
It really did. And it was a very difficult time. I mean, all of our incomes were cut by 40, 50%. And, when you have 4 kids and you're trying to figure things
Yeah.
out and provide, it's early mornings and late nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
100%.
But God has been faithful through it all. I mean, He really has. He's always been in control. And, when you don't think that there's a way, He always makes a way.
Yeah.
And, that's very comforting.
It's kind of amazing. I mean, if you're in the Pensacola area and you've probably had any interactions in real estate, you've probably heard of Old South or the Porter name. But I hear people over and over again, and this mattered to me because I sat down and I talked. There's a few people. Before you make a big decision in life, you probably have a handful of people that you run everything by. And
I have a story.
Yeah. And, over and over again, I think more so than anything else, the reputation that you have and that Mark has and that your dad, Jim, have, and how you deal with people and how you treat people in a Christ-like way, even in business, which is very easy not to do sometimes, has rung true far more times in stories I hear from other people. And so it made it a very easy, decision. I said, this is where we want to be and, where I want my family. And I think a lot of people throughout the community, even meeting other realtors, know if they don't know Old South, they know Porter. And if they don't know Porter, they know Old South. And it's the same reputation consistently. Tell us a little bit, what is it that it may just be something that comes natural. It might be a small, a short conversation. But because we talk often about being servant leadership, we've spoken about dealing with people in Christian business that do not represent the name of Christ well. And you have a business that has done that well and consistently for 50 years. How do you approach that? Is that something conscientious that you ensure is done? Is it just, what do you do in your life and in the life of your business to ensure that you have a consistent testimony of Christ through the business that you do?
Okay. So let me start at the beginning.
Sure.
All right. And I was very blessed to have great parents. Okay. I was a dorm supervisor in Tennessee. All right. And I would go around to the different halls because that was part of my responsibility. And I was on those floors, and I would get to visit the different rooms when they would have little small groups or
Sure.
whatever the case may be. And I just thought most people came from families like what I was blessed to come from.
Sure.
And I had kind of taken it for granted growing up that that's just how things were. I had a great mother, had a great father. They sacrificed, they cared, but they taught us the scriptures. And our family, it was built on the foundation of God's Word. And so that was, the number one thing I would say is that, my family growing up, and it wasn't something that I started, it was what my parents had started, was building, their life, their family, as well as their business on God's principles, using the Bible as the foundation. And so when I was walking around in those different small groups at Temple, and I heard the stories, some of those kids had come from, and just, the abuse, the neglect, the broken homes, all of that, it tore my heart up. I was devastated. And it really that was like a defining moment for me where I'm like, wow, thank you, Lord, for the parents that you gave to me. And even though there were hard times, I mean, everybody knows life is not a bag of tricks, just simple and rosy and all that. I mean, it's hard, and there are storms of life that you have to go through. But I always saw them being very consistent in applying God's Word to their everyday life. And that really meant a lot to me. And I had made a decision that that's how I wanted to build my family, and the things that I was involved with, I wanted it to be built on God's Word. I mean, His Word never changes. And so if you can build your life on His Word, it doesn't matter really what comes down the pike, because, I mean, we live in a world that there's trouble, there's a lot of problems, but if you can stay focused, even though you're getting bombarded from all different sides on, well, what would His Word say? How should I handle that situation? And so that's kind of honestly how I have approached it. And I'm very thankful that I was in church and was able to learn the scriptures and just try to keep our family built on God's Word.
Yeah, I mean, that's fundamentally the most important thing, right? It just keeps everything going. And not everybody, I grew up in one of those households that you're talking about, where my parents were drug addicts. They weren't bad to me, like, physical or anything like that, but it just was not a great household. So I didn't grow up knowing about Jesus. They sent me to church on Sunday mornings to get out of their hair so they can have time away. And, as an adult and growing up as a parent, I understand. Just send them home.
Well, he has 38 children now. I don't know if you or 5 to 38, somewhere in there.
It's somewhere.
It feels like 38.
Yeah, they just keep coming out of the anyway, so, but as I grew up and became a Christian, I realized that the real family I have starts with God, and then God directs the family to me. I get family like Dan and I met, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's like we've known each other forever, and that's a God thing. Mm-hmm. But we have the same type of business mindset. And the people that I get around, Scott Porter's, the Dan Callahans in the world that had that business mindset of God first, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And it changes how your business not only continues to operate, but how the residual income comes back constantly.
I think it's scary for people to operate in that way, because when you operate to how do I please the Lord in what I do, your goal is not money.
Yeah.
And that's unnerving, especially to your wife. When you say, it's not about money, it's just about following the principles. Yeah, okay, but we really have a mortgage, right? You know? And, but it's amazing how God, when you take those steps, because I think we maybe, I can only speak for me. I know I've been in business where it was not, those principles were not even remote in my mind. It was all about the money and getting that next promotion and doing whatever I had to do. and that left me absolutely hollow. Every victory I won, every raise I got, was just absolutely. They tasted worse in my mouth every single time. You know, they left that bitterness over and over again, and then you're just chasing the next pay raise, the next this, the next that, and God freed me of that when He took it all away. You know, when we left and decided to come down here, and hey, put in the papers to say we're going to take the step out, is the first time I think in my adult life I felt freedom of being able to do that. We knew. And it's not always easy every day to wake up and say it, but we knew God had us. And we knew we were going to be poor. We knew it was going to be tough, but we knew, because my wife and I sat down and we talked about this. For months it's been, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this or pay this, or I don't know where this is going to come from. I don't know how we're going to pay the mortgage. And we sit down and said, you know what? There hasn't been a night, there hasn't been dinner on the table. There hasn't been a night where we haven't had heat and air conditioning and lights.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a night and we look and are we really suffering? I think it's in our heads, that the finite and the immediate seems so important sometimes. And we look, God is taking care of us every single step of the way. And when you run your business like that, to a lot of people, especially from the outside, it looks strange.
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
No, they can't understand it.
Right.
Because it only comes from an understanding that's within us. And but I think a lot of Christian entrepreneurs struggle with that as well. That's why we find some of these kind of issues where they may compromise for the immediate benefit, but have hit long-term detriment to themselves by sacrificing those kind of principles. And a lot of people will hit those kind of things. Maybe you can point to, and I'd like to hear some of the stories, because you've been doing this, you said, 30 something, 30 years. There's probably been tons of situations where you've probably been approached with something or have had an opportunity and you said, I don't know if I can do that, because it's going to be, we make a lot of money maybe, or it would be very beneficial, but I can't. Right, or something like that. What would you say to an entrepreneur out there that is faced with those kind of issues, where they're going to have to take a road?
Okay, remember when I said I have a story?
Yes.
Okay, so just before the crash, of the real estate market,
in the 20s or the
no.
08? Okay,
08.
All right, gotcha.
Property, 2005 time frame. If you look back at the stats, that was just an unbelievable time for real estate sales. The market was going crazy. Homes were appreciating, rapidly. It was just amazing what was happening. Well, when you get in that kind of cycle, all right, well, sometimes you lose some of the principles that you had established previously because deals are coming to you all the time.
That's like blood in the water.
Exactly. They're coming to you all the time, and so you're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll buy that, we'll make a quick flip, and then do this. So I ended up getting some partners. They had identified a piece of property over in Navarre, right there on the beach. It's beautiful and all. And I bought the most expensive lot with a couple partners that I had ever done in my entire life. We didn't pray about it first at all. Okay. And I never spoke to my wife about it at all.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So you can see things are
2 strikes.
Things are not adding up too well here. Well, so we put a lot of money down on it. We paid on it on an interest-only loan, because at that time they were doing those no docs, interest-only loans. And then when the market crashed, we had a partner that just completely bailed on us that had more money than any of us.
Oh,
and
that's how he had more money than everybody.
Yeah, that's right. We made payments on that lot for years, 3 years, interest-only payments, and then he bailed. He said he's not doing it anymore. And that kind of left us in a dilemma. Sure. All right, because we want to make sure we're taking care of what we're supposed to do, but if you don't have it to take care of it with, you've got some problems.
Sure. Yeah.
So we went to the bank. We talked to them about it. We explained. We gave them a whole lot of money. They got an appraisal on the property. We gave them the difference, and then they got it back.
Oh, wow.
And it was not one that we walked away from. I needed to be able to lay my head down on the pillow at night,
sure,
knowing I had done everything I possibly could with what I had.
Yeah.
And so, I would say when you're going to make a major decision, you got to pray about it first.
Sure.
To know that if it's even something you should do, because there's a lot of deals that are good deals that come along, and it's not just real estate; it could be anything. But you need to pray about it first. And by all means, if you're married, you better talk to your wife about it.
Sure.
I mean the nights following can be very cold.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly right. So I would just say definitely make everything that you do a matter of prayer. Ask for wisdom.
Yeah.
God says that He'll give it to you liberally.
Sure.
If you ask for it.
100%.
So you just got to ask for it.
I think even if you don't have a spouse, you need a partner in life. Somebody that you can speak to about these kind of things. You need to. I think people isolate themselves. You'll make the worst decisions in your entire life when you isolate yourself.
Yeah.
100%. If you don't, because when you're by yourself, no matter what you say is right, because you don't have anybody saying saying anything back.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time, Alicia and I, and when we see something that's like a dumb idea, we're like, well, that's a dumb idea. Who came up with that? And I always say, it's not the guy who come up with the idea for it, whatever, if it's a product or a saying, it's the guy who goes along with it, who said, you know what, that's a great idea. It's that guy who's a little bit
it's like a terrible
nuttier.
Hairstyle. Like, you didn't talk to anybody before you got that.
But if somebody else comes along and agrees with you, that person, because they're outside of it.
Yeah.
They've had the time to take a look at it and kind of look it over and say goods and bads.
Yeah.
Now they're like, yeah, it's great.
See, I was always I was challenged a long
right.
time ago to have 5 people to run by every major life decision. Mainly because you can get 5 different perspectives on the same issue, and you knew if all 5 of them were yes, that's it. But you're going to get 5 different perspectives on it because at least 1 or 2 of them are going to differ. But if you just go to one, you better make sure that one person knows what they're talking about.
That's for sure.
And I'm kind of interested too because we're in Florida, which realtors are not, how do you say, rare.
Yeah,
in Florida. There's a couple of us. We've had Nathan McIntosh in here from your brokerage.
Great agent.
And we haven't had anybody else because they're too scared to come on here so far. So we tried to get Brandon and Mark on and David. Did David?
David, he's here.
He's here.
Yeah, he did. He showed up.
Where is he?
So I saw him out here somewhere.
Hey, Chris, can you go get David? Say what?
Protect your home with the best in the business. Duncan Custom Gutter and Coppercraft. From seamless gutters to stunning custom copper work, we deliver top quality craftsmanship that lasts. Say goodbye to leaks, fogs, and water damage with expert installation and repairs from the local pros you can trust. Call Duncan Custom Gutter and Coppercraft at 850-455-7246. Again, that's 850-455-7246. Or find us online at DuncanCustomGutter.com. Duncan Custom Gutter, where we say doing it right is cheaper than doing it over.
Yeah, go get David. We're going to get David in here. Awesome. Well, come on in, man. We'll get y'all set up. Hey, do we have headphones over there?
I do not see.
We're going to get, for those of you not watching the video, Scott's son David has just come in. He's going to join us. We only had to
now
ask
the brains of the outfit is here.
That's a microphone there, so you have to talk into that. Anyway, well, welcome. We've had a good conversation. We were just talking about. I was asking your dad. I said we're in Florida, and realtors aren't necessarily a rarity. Here. Mm-hmm. Can you hear me okay without headphones? Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
He's young. Sometimes when you get headphones on, you could be whispering, and you just don't know it until you take it off, and you say, "We all sound weird."
Well, I took them off, and you were yelling.
Was I?
I could hear you pretty good.
Oh, good. I think somebody told me early on that I talk too softly. Now I try to yell into a microphone. So, but what do you do as realtor? We talked about the foundations that he's set and your grandfather set as running it biblically based, and running it with the values and the principles of Scripture and of God. But how as a realtor do you separate yourself out in Florida? I mean, especially in the Panhandle here. I mean, this is where everybody wants to go. It's a vast and growing place. And we talk about sometimes if you operate under biblical principles. Sometimes you're probably going to sacrifice the quick money sometimes, or the ill-gotten gain that a lot of people can get that, sometimes can give realtors poor names. But what are those kind of things that you do that would separate you out for people looking in, that are even in real estate or looking for a realtor? What do they need to look for, and what do realtors need to do to apply those kind of principles and still be successful in what they do?
You're good.
Well, I mean, kind of like what we've talked about, building your, the agent needs to build their life, their career, their business on biblical principles, and consistency, really, in everything that you're doing from that standpoint. I've seen a lot of cards where they'll put crosses on them to advertise that they're a Christian business, and I'm not against that. Don't think, but I for me personally, I would much rather those Christian principles be demonstrated in performance and in action, so that I don't have to tell you by a card that. Right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would much rather.
Shouldn't have to say, by the way, I'm a Christian.
That's exactly.
You didn't know that until I just told you. Right?
Yeah, that's right. I've had many instances, and hey, I'm no different than anybody else. I have problems in my life, and I fail here and there and all of that. So I'm not trying to say that I'm better than anybody, and I wouldn't want that to ever come across like that. But, I've had situations, especially with property management, a lot of situations with residential sales as well, where you'll have a situation that comes up where maybe an owner wants to claim more of a tenant's deposit than what they should because of, whatever the case may be, maybe the condition of how something was left or how it was left by the owner when they moved out of the property, and you just have to be. I mean, what we want to do is treat everybody fairly. We want to treat them the way that we would want to be treated. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Yeah. And I can't play favorites. Sure. I can only go by what's the right thing to do. Yeah. And sometimes we lose business because of that, because an owner will be upset or unhappy, but at least I can know that I did the right thing by not taking an action that I know is not correct. Sure. On that. So. Yeah.
David, what about as a realtor?
I think the big thing I've noticed is just doing what you say you'll do. So different owners, if you say you'll have different numbers ran for them or certain repairs taken care of, having it done exactly the way that you told them. I think a lot of people in our business, they give these different expectations and don't always follow through. So I noticed over the last few years that's really what's set apart, or what I think has set apart us from a lot of
There's some really good
individuals.
Really good salesmen out there, and not a lot of great executors.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That's absolutely true.
They can absolutely sell. Yeah, I know. I mean, I've witnessed it over and over again because I've heard in conversations people say, "Well, I was going to. I just don't think I'm the right one for you." I think I've heard Mark and Nathan say that as well, because they were either being asked to do something that I said, I can't compromise on that. I can't do that. I'm not going to. I'm just not the right one for you.
Yeah.
I think that speaks a lot.
Yeah. I remember went over to list a house for sale, and the owner had painted over some termite damage on a baseboard in one of the bedrooms. And I'll never forget it. I said, well, you would have to disclose that. And he's like, no, he just was going to paint over it. And I said, well, I'm not your guy for that. Can't do that. That would have to be taken care of, corrected, and disclosed to a potential buyer. Yeah. And so, we lost the listing on it, but, in the long run, that's, I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You have to do what's right.
That's one thing I think has impressed me about the brokerage. I hear a lot about what I will and will not do from agents because of the impact it'll have on the reputation in the long run. It's not necessarily somebody says, "Well, Jesus wouldn't want me to do that." They don't have to say that because they know who they represent. But that's impressive because you don't. I mean, I've been in business situations where it's about how can I'll do whatever you want me to do. You don't want me to disclose that? Sure, not my problem. As long as I get paid at the end of the day. And they justify
I've had some situations that you just wouldn't believe.
Yeah, and you see that across the board, and I think that we've seen some strong people come out in the last few days, at least on the show too, from professional services that don't always have the greatest reputation. I don't think realtors have the same reputation as lawyers do, but it depends on where you are. It depends on where you are, but But I think that's what we want to do. We want to demonstrate to Christian entrepreneurs out there and people getting into, because there's not just realtors in Florida, a lot of realtors. There's a lot of real estate investors in Florida. I mean, tons.
Yeah.
This is where you want to go to invest. There's a lot of people going into it. I've met a lot. You know, I'm relatively new to the Panhandle. Met a lot of real estate investors who claim one thing and act in a completely different way. It's very disheartening.
Well, and I think I might have even told you about this. I had a situation where a builder in town had actually was in the process. They were getting a certificate of occupancy and the buyer was actually one of our tenants and was going to be moving into the property. Well, they had some kind of delay. That it happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether it's weather or whatever the case may be. And the tenant had already given notice that they were vacating. We'd put the property back up on the market. We had got it re-rented. And so as soon as that tenant was going to move out of there, the new ones were moving in. Well, they're coming from across country, you know, have all of their goods in a U-Haul or whatever. And that builder stormed into our office. And this was years and years ago, but I'll never forget it. And that might be why I don't like crosses on business cards. He stormed into our office, and he raked me over the coals. He went up one side. He raked me down the other side, that I will extend that tenant's lease so that they can continue to stay in the property. I'm the middle guy. I have no control over that. Right. You know, I've got legal documents on both sides. And long story short, we got it worked out because we weren't trying to cause a problem but we called the owner, we called the people that were moving here and got it to them to extend a few days. And so everything worked out fine.
Yeah, the house wasn't ready
the house wasn't ready for them to move into. Yeah. So we got it all worked out. And then he pulls out of his wallet his business card, which has a cross on it. And then he talked about the church that he goes to and how he's a deacon over at the church and all of this. And I was like, I mean, I was just so like taken back by it. And so I'm kind of sensitive about that stuff. I don't want any of that stuff on any of my business cards, my parking. I just want to be real.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We talk about that a lot is, you know, we don't have any of that on our business logos or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm a Christian, been a Christian for 30 years. But on the same token, I'm also a human.
Yeah.
I have emotion.
Exactly.
I have feelings. And if I have a bad day, and I'm not saying I'm going to curse at somebody, but it doesn't matter how I interact with you, how you feel about it or how I come across is one thing. And if I've given you a card or impression that I'm a Christian through that symbol, then now I've turned you further away. And how much harder is it to fish you back in?
That's exactly right.
Rather than just through my actions up front.
Yeah,
and
I think we've all met people that go, I will not work with Christian business.
I won't do business
I won't do them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, but I totally agree. We are human. We have bad days, you know, and it seems like when you get hit once, you get hit a second and a third, and it just keeps coming. And, you know, you have a breaking point at some point, and you respond in a way that is not right, not appropriate.
Yeah.
And then, you know, after it's over, then you feel bad about it.
Yeah.
We talked a minute ago, if you don't mind, Dan, about you know, going down that path of taking the easy money or, you know, kind of covering something up and saying, you know what, we'll go ahead with that listing or whatever. But that's a path that sometimes these guys, and it happens in my line of work. We're in the gutter business. That happens there. People cut corners and do all kinds of things. And you go, okay, you can do that for a little bit and get away with it. The further you get down that road, the harder it is to make a U-turn and come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And 9 times out of 10 in business, it means closure of your business, and then you got to start over. Well, people don't forget you. They don't forget your face. You may change your name of your business, but you're still the same person. Yeah. Right. And it's harder to come back from. Than saying, I'm going to do it the right way, and it's going to take me a little bit longer. So we call this, you know, value over money. Yeah. I'll take the value now, giving you the value, and I'll take a little bit of money now because in the end, that money's just going to keep coming in. Right.
We say a lot of times this podcast makes terrible T-shirts because it's easier to, you know, do a podcast and say, listen, follow these steps and you'll be a millionaire. I promise. Instead of saying, hey, follow what the Lord has called you to do and do it with integrity and value, it may mean you're going to make less money. Yeah. It may mean
Yeah.
you're going to be in the middle of the road instead of a $10 million business. You might have a $1.5 million business, which is still fine, which is still great. But it's at the end of the day, am I bringing honor and glory to God in everything that I do? Mm-hmm. Am I willing to? There's the test. Am I willing to sacrifice an amazing gain in order to maintain the reputation of God and to maintain His testimony to the world? Am I willing to do that? And I really think if you're not willing to do that, I just be an employee. To be quite honest with you, it'd be a lot easier just to be an employee. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would bring disrepute to God and doing it, especially if you own your own business and it's your reputation that's tied so intimately to the God that you serve. I mean, that's an extra load on you, but it can also be freeing. Mm-hmm. I think it can be absolutely freeing because He's already made the decision. All you got to do is obey and follow through. Yeah. But David, I want to hear from you a little bit because you're third generation. I don't know why I just said third gen to be cool.
If you're thinking about buying your first home, relocating to the area, or investing in real estate, I'm Daniel Callahan, realtor with ERA Old South Properties, and I'm here to make the process simple and stress-free. So whether you're military, moving across town, or looking to grow your portfolio, I've got your back. So let's find the right place right now. Call me at 850-903-4650 and visit my website at danielcallahanrealestate.com.
We've heard a little bit. Your dad grew up with your grandfather, and seeing that kind of thing, and he naturally went into, I guess, real estate. I never asked you, do you actually want to be in real estate?
I haven't done anything else.
But maybe, because you have how many children? Scott?
4.
You have 4 children.
2 boys, 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls.
And David's the oldest.
And how many work in real estate?
Just David.
Just David, right? And Mark has...
He's got Braden. And that's his second son, and he works it with him.
Yep.
He's got 3 kids.
And he has
He's
3.
got 3.
And 1 in real estate.
1 in real estate.
So not everybody decided the family biz was the way to go. Right. So what?
Tell them that I didn't push you into it.
Right. He does sit in his office and cry a lot. I don't know if that's bad or good. No, he's. Tell us a little bit about that decision, because I know there's probably some implied. Not directed or intentional pressure, but you're a porter.
Yeah. It was
and
kind
those kind of things
set up, I guess.
Yeah.
If you will.
But what made you decide? Okay, because you didn't come out at 18 like your dad didn't get your license, did you?
No, I think I was 21.
Yeah.
I finished college.
And you did some other work before you did this full time. So maybe tell us a little bit about that story, how God's brought you to this point.
So I started out doing lawn care and tree work, lawn care first and then got into tree work. We started 8 years old cutting the neighbor's yard, and then it just started one after another. And by the time we were in college, we were doing anywhere from 60 to 75 yards on a regular basis. And I didn't want to sweat for the rest of my life cutting grass, to be honest. But
this is not the state to go into landscaping, and so many people do. I just don't know why.
But I don't know, just the opportunities that it had, and I saw how Dad was able to travel and do different vacations and step away when he needed to, but then also without fail, whenever we were leaving to go on a vacation, I got to work on this contract before we leave, But I just saw a lot of the different opportunities that it presented and allowed us to do. So for me, it was an easier decision, I guess, just because I wanted to be able to do a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
So
and
graduated college. I do.
Okay.
I do, yeah. Graduated college and then got my license, and I was about 21, 22 when I started getting into it.
And you're 29. Oh, man. You're older than I thought you were. That's good. That's
I had to think about it for a second.
You had to go.
Yeah, I got a 7-month-old daughter.
Yeah, and you're...
Yeah. He's 29 with a 7-month-old. I'm 44, almost 45 with an 8-month-old.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's easy. Just keep it going. That's it. I know. I was talking to your wife the other day because my wife and I, are thinking about more children. And I went, I just don't know. I'm old. I'm 40. I'll be 42 this year. And your wife goes, my husband's almost 50, and he's got a baby. And I was like, he's 45, isn't he?
That was a big thing on our Friday night group this past week, was how old everybody is. We're so old now.
we're only in our 40s. Nobody can remember how old we were. I thought
That's because we just stopped talking about it after about 34, 35.
Yeah.
Birthdays is just a dinner and you move on. I don't even know when I'm on.
Annie said, I'm in my mid 40s. And then as the conversation went on, her husband leans over and then she goes, oh, I'm only 43. And then all of a sudden she's 41.
It just keeps going back.
It's like, what? And
I think Andy ended up being 50 by the end of it.
I'm starting to get some of that AARP stuff in the mail.
Yep. It's coming.
It's hard to believe.
I mean, you should be able to request that and they shouldn't send it to you.
I know.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, come
Make
on.
me go to, well, that's, I don't know, maybe going to a website and requesting is not the
But then
best way
again,
to
yeah,
do
you
it,
don't want to
WRP.
request it because you'll never get it because you
That's
can't remember. You're like, I don't, what was that thing I needed to order? The AAA CB.
I think one of the things I wanted to talk about too, and it's unique because we don't often have. We've had the Rusty Penton, and he's third generation.
Third.
And I'm glad we have a second and a third generation part of the same family business, even though it's not called Porter Real Estate. It's still the Porter family. It didn't. He started it with other brokers? Did he?
He
not?
did. He actually started with two other ladies.
Gotcha.
And
knocked them off eventually. Is that?
No, he bought them out after
I
a
gotcha.
couple of years, and then so he was on his own.
I thought we were going to get like a juicy power grab
No,
story or
no.
something. That was
They were really nice ladies, great agents in the area, and he bought them out. They wanted to do other things, do their own thing.
Gotcha.
And so,
Well, what is the future? I mean, that you see or want out of? I mean, not too many families get to a third generation in family business. Not a lot of them make it that far. And do that. No pressure.
Statistically,
It's all coming down to you.
Statistically, it's 10%.
my retirement depends on you. But
Yeah,
don't let that bother you at all.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell you the numbers, but it is. I mean, 90% fail in third generation. They do. 70% in Scott's generation.
Yep.
Of course, 50% of all businesses fail in the first generation, so it's not that far off. But it's very intentional. How do you? What is your vision? What do you do or see that you have in place that you can speak to other people who want to? I mean, Derek and I are in the same position. We want to start something that is that's generational, that can impact the world and impact our family and impact the kingdom beyond just us. Right. What do we put in place? What can you speak to that we put in place? And David, what do you put in place to ensure you don't drop the ball and throw everything into the fire pit? No.
Well, I think David would tell you that I've never put pressure on him.
Yeah.
I've never expected him to be in real estate. I want him to do what the Lord wants him to do. And that might be something totally different. And if it is, that's completely fine with me. Because I firmly believe that Lord will, He'll direct your path, And so, I came along and worked with my dad, and I really didn't know anything else other than that. I knew that I was getting married in '92.
You needed a job.
And I needed a job. That's exactly right. I needed a job. So I followed in his footsteps. And it's been very good. It's been very good to me. It's been a very good living. It's allowed us to, be able to do some things and provide for a future. But I can tell you from my heart, I truly don't expect him to do that if that's not what he wants to do.
Sure.
On that. If he didn't want to do it, and Braden's, Mark's son doesn't want to do it, well, we would find an alternative. We would sell the company or do something like that.
That's awesome.
But as far as I know, I'm not aware of anything like that right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you, David, feel any? I mean, obviously, I've never heard, and I know he hasn't ever said, it's up to you now. Right. But I mean, just maybe personally from you, and because there's other people out there in that same situation, because honestly, I went into the ministry as a 22-year-old, and I wasn't called to the ministry, but it was the family biz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, it didn't go well, and because I felt, the same thing. My dad never said, hey, I was in the ministry. You need to as well. Never had that. But I just felt like I was supposed to, right?
It fit.
And you've been doing it for years now, and have been. I mean, you've got enough gold around your neck. I think it's going well. If you can't see that on camera, no. But I mean, what do you see? I mean, how can you speak to somebody who's maybe in that second or third generation and saying, you know, hey, I need to follow what the Lord has for me, even if it is this business or it isn't. But you know, maybe what are you thinking? I mean, what do you want?
I've never felt pressured to stay in it. For me, I think a lot more, I would say, factually or logically. So it's not, I don't necessarily make decisions based off of emotion. So for me, it was just different, you know, life principles of, you know, outside of business, whether it's giving or, you know, spending time with different people or different things. I guess I just felt like it's where I was supposed to be at least for this time.
Yeah.
I would always be willing to move or go if need be. I just haven't necessarily felt that.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I've chosen to stay in it, and I've been very fortunate with just different opportunities and people I've gotten to work with, and haven't necessarily had to be looking for the next deal constantly. I've been fortunate enough to have a hand both in the rental side and the sales side to be, I guess, busy where I didn't have those different pressures or stresses, if you will.
Sure.
So for me, it was just that was kind of what has led me to, you know, want to stay in the business as a third generation. Is just it's worked, and that's where I felt like I'm supposed to be for right now.
Yeah, I like it because we often get confused that God has called me to a particular job title, but He's called us to serve. Mm-hmm. He's called us to work. If we hold on too tight to the immediate of what we have, even if it's a business or a legacy, we hold on to it too tight and don't allow God to move us where He needs us to move, then we can actually work against Him by holding on to something, you know, like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great perspective for people. I think it takes a lot of pressure off a lot of people. I've seen a lot. Sometimes I think one of the biggest reasons I think multi-generational businesses fail is because there is that so much pressure to be the previous generation that they crack. They can't be, and they never will be. They're going to be they could be something hugely amazing on their own, but God may not have called them to be able to do that.
Yeah,
but they hold on to it and it becomes a point of pride.
Yeah.
More than anything else, and it's not just a legacy. It's me.
Yeah.
And that's always a dangerous place, always to be. So I've always been. I mean, I'm always encouraged to see people that have, and that's what we want Christian entrepreneurs to understand. It's not about the business that you're starting or the business that you're running. It's about the purpose that God has given you.
I couldn't agree.
The direction He's going to send you. It doesn't matter. I've always tried to. I love to work. I just love to work. I've always described myself as an engine, and I don't care what car you put me in. You know, I just I love to work. Yeah. But I think overall that it kind of helps me hold on to things with loose hands. It's wherever God wants to put me, and it's a shame. It was nearly into my 40s before I came to that point with God and coming back to God and understanding that it's not about the achieving this or holding on to this or building this or having that. It's about serving Him in everything.
Yeah.
And everything we do. And the blessings come. Not searching for the blessings, not working for a blessing. There's a difference than working for a blessing and being blessed.
Yeah, that's right.
By God.
Yeah, and you've got to keep your priorities straight. And I can look back over my career and I can think of the times that I was like you, work. I mean, that's what my body's wired. It's in my DNA. Because that's what I saw my dad do.
Yeah.
I would see him get up super early in the morning. I'd see him work super late at night. And he did that for years and years and years while he was building a business. And then, you know, when he stepped away from it many years ago, you know, the business just doesn't happen on its own. You have to get in there and you have to, you own a business. You know how that goes. You're making sure everything's taken care of and solving the problems and everything that goes with that. And sometimes when you're so focused on trying to do that, you can lose sight of some of the other things that are real important, like your family. Yeah. You know, and if you get those priorities out of whack, it can cause problems at home, which I've been through that story. Yeah. You know, where have kids at home and, you know, a wife trying to handle 4 kids and get them to certain places and everything that goes on with that, but you're so busy working and working and working. You're like a workaholic, you know. So you have to have priorities
Yeah.
with that. Make sure that it's not out of balance,
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
They talk about work-life balance, and I don't even know if that even exists. It's constantly, well, if I focus highly on the family,
Yeah.
then work starts to slip. And then if I focus on work, then
Right.
family slips.
Yeah.
Well, then I got to focus on Jesus, and then now,
Yeah.
okay, well, then friends come calling, and so
Yeah.
it's really work-life juggle.
Yeah.
There's no balance. It's really all out right.
I'll tell you what I did, and it was not something I came up with. It was recommended to me. Is I was in that situation where working all the time, and it just felt like the spokes were coming off the wheel. You know what I mean? Things were getting out of control. And I took a legal pad of paper, and I wrote down everything that I was involved in. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked at the committees that I was involved with, the engagements that I had for the whole year, as far as the things that I had obligated myself to. I was speaking at some of the committee or conventions and stuff, and I was like, wow, this is really out of control. And I literally went through, and in one day, I just axed a whole bunch of stuff right off it. Explained why, and it made a big difference. It got me back in focus.
Sure.
But it was real important, not only for my family, but for my health as well.
Yeah.
Because I had gone through a lot of health problems, and it was all stress related.
Yeah. I think when you get it's so easy to get busy. And you get so busy that you can't really see any individual thing that you're doing or involved in. It just becomes a white noise that just kind of surrounds you
Yeah.
all the time. And when you sit down and you get that moment of clarity and you just list it out,
Yep.
you go, well, no wonder I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Every second of my day.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, a big part for me with business has been some of the relationships that I have developed with other Christian businessmen here in our community. I think Steve Jones, he's a good friend of mine, great guy, has a mortgage company and stuff. And, we go to lunch every so often. We talk about things, and, he's like an accountability type partner. Other insurance people that I know. And it's good to surround yourself and be friends with people that can give you good, godly advice.
Yeah.
Definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to every day. I mean, I know a lot of it's very popular, that 5 a.m. rule, getting up super early. But I have noticed, especially if you're busy and you're in business, I think those early morning hours, if you dedicate to get up, it's not just important to get ready for the day. It's important because you're going to be busy as soon as you walk out that front door. It's going to be nonstop until you hit that pillow at night. Taking that time to put everything to God in the morning, spend time with Him and in His Word and in the quietness, is going to help give you that perspective we talked about.
Yeah.
Because you're bathing your entire day in prayer and in focusing it right and in focusing it in the correct way. When that starts to slip away, then that busyness and that white noise just kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in an easier place to compromise later on down the road, because you just want the noise to kind of stop for a little while, you're willing to do whatever. But taking those kind of different kinds of things today, and I think it's very encouraging, and I think people need to hear this, that business can be done very well and can be done in a successful way and build a healthy, God-honoring reputation and be done in the right way without having to compromise. It is humanly possible to do that. And I think people need to know that. And coming into business and dedicating it every single day, throughout the time, and we could probably sit here, you've been doing this for so many years, you can probably point to story after story after story where bad things happened, or you made a wrong decision, or you made a mistake, either personally or in business, that God used to bring you back around, to bring things into perspective, to teach you something. But you're still here. You still have a reputation that is God-honoring in our community, that is honoring to God and the church as well, despite everything that's happened over the last 30-something years that God has brought you through. And so if you're in a business, you're starting a business, no, it's possible, but it's intentional. It has to start every single morning on your knees before God and everything. And I can tell you one thing, I've really enjoyed today.
Yes.
I've enjoyed the conversation, and these are the type of conversations that have meant so much to Derek and I, that inspired us that more people need to hear these same conversations, because we have these personally, like other people need to hear
Yeah.
and need to know and to be encouraged, because you never know what that one conversation could change the entire trajectory of somebody's life, whether they're standing in the line waiting for a sandwich after church. That could change the entire trajectory
That's true.
Yeah.
of their life. Thank you so much
Yeah. Well,
for
I
being
appreciate
on with
you
us today,
allowing
Scott.
me to be here with you guys.
Yep.
Really enjoyed it.
David, we're going to have you on by yourself so you can talk more. Okay? We're going to do that. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for listening to the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast. See you next time.
Hey, did you enjoy that episode? Excellent. We hope you did. Guess what? There's more. Go to Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Listen to us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. WPNM Radio 103.7. Follow and subscribe. Stay up to date on new episodes by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Join the conversation. Comment on Facebook or Instagram. Send us a message and comment at the ARC Entrepreneur Podcast at gmail.com. Share the episode. If you enjoy it, tag us and let us know your favorite takeaway. Thank you for joining us for our radio broadcast. If you want to hear the rest of the episode, go to our website, thearcpodcast.com.